Welcome everyone to our Volunteers Week. Actually, Volunteers Week this time. I know we did a couple of events 2 weeks ago before Volunteers Week, just to get everyone in the mindset and starting to think about the celebrations that we'd be having and starting to prepare. For me, it feels like we've been at this for quite a few months now. I would imagine some of you in the network are feeling similarly, having sort of organised events for your volunteers and other things. But welcome to have you today. Just again, reiterating that wonderful vibe that is Volunteers Week that comes around every year in June. It's such a pleasurable time to work. It's such a really nice time to be involved in this job and to celebrate what our volunteers do. So yes, happy Volunteers Week to everybody. Today, we are having the third of our Volunteers Week webinars. So we're on our second week of programming, online programming now, with our third webinar. And I would like to welcome Michaela and Karen from Home Start Watford and Three Rivers, who are going to be speaking to us about how they support volunteer wellbeing. But before they do, and while people are still joining us, I say that optimistically, hoping there are still a few people coming in, I'll just share a few notices. So please do introduce yourselves in the chat. We're really keen that you use that chat facility and connect with each other. Please do share your camera if you're able, but equally we understand that it's lunchtime. So if you prefer to camera off during this time, then please do. That's absolutely fine. Do participate in the session in the way that feels most comfortable for you. Do sort of move around and refresh how you feel you need to. We know that sitting at your desk all day, every day, just sometimes it's nice to stretch out and have that moment to yourself. We'd ask that you remain muted during the session just so we don't get any background noise or interference while our guests are speaking. And we do have a lovely Zoom background for you to use if you'd like to, either in this session or later on in the week if you're joining us at our Volunteers Week virtual meetup on Thursday. So I'm sure Yvonne will pop that into the chat for you as well, so you've got it. It's also on at home, so you can find that there as well to be using in Volunteers Week, along with some email banners and other sort of social media collateral and such like. So I know that Yvonne has already said that this session is being recorded, but just to remind you of that, and the recordings will be uploaded onto At Home come the end of this week. So we will be sharing those in the video library area afterwards. You're very welcome, as I said, to use the chat box. You're welcome to virtual hand up or wave at us to get our attention. Yvonne will be monitoring the chat box while we are in session, and we have set aside some time for a Q&A at the end. So you're welcome to hold on to your questions to the end or put them in the chat as they come into your mind. That's absolutely fine. And yeah, just before I move on ahead, we look like we're good, Yvonne? Perfect. So I take absolute pleasure in introducing to you Michaela Foster Osborne and Karen Watkins from Home Start Watford and Three Rivers. I had the absolute pleasure of going to visit the team at Watford and Three Rivers a couple of months ago now, I think, and was so excited to learn about what they were doing there that I thought it was a wonderful opportunity to invite them into our Volunteers Week celebrations to speak with the network. So I hope that you enjoy as much as I know I'm going to. Michaela and Karen, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you put so much into this. I will hand over to you.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Karen Watkin. I'm the Director of Operations at Home Start.
Hi there, good afternoon. I'm Michaela Foster Osborne. I'm the Director of Services.
So thank you so much for having us here this afternoon. It's really, really a privilege to be able to speak to you all. Volunteering and their wellbeing is really at the heart of everything we do. So wonderful that we can share with you today. what we're doing. As I said, Michaela and I are both, just to tell you a little bit about our Home Start, because we're probably all different shapes and sizes. Michaela and I are both co-directors. We don't have a CEO in our structure here, so Michaela and I lead the organisation. I lead through the operational side, and Michaela leads through the service side. So we have the two brains working as one across the strategy.
Sometimes.
So we're a bit of a double act. So hopefully this will go well. So just to kind of really fill you in on who we are. So we have been around for 33 years. We work across 3 districts in Hertfordshire. So we're Watford, Three Rivers and Hertsmere. And given our income level, HSUK would probably consider us a larger Home Start. Our work is focused in densely populated urban areas, urban communities. And we have 10 members of staff, but equivalent to 6 full-time members. And one of our strategic goals, one of our 6 strategic goals, is actually to be a great place to volunteer and work. So that is embedded in everything we do, from the top, from the strategic vision of the trustees, with ourselves and with the team. It's something that is always at the forefront of our minds whenever we're thinking about what we're doing with our volunteers and how we're supporting them.
Is it okay if we start sharing the slides? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Actually, let's do that. Thank you, Michaela.
That's all right.
Yeah, this one. I just totally forgot to share them, didn't I?
That's okay.
That's brilliant, ladies. We can see that.
Can you see that?
Yeah. And how do we
Yep.
move? Next slide. How do we move on to the next
I
slide?
think this is not live, maybe. Sorry, ladies and gents.
In the bottom left-hand corner, there should be like a...
Oh, yeah, there is. Thank
There you
you.
go. No problem.
Oh, look, technology's got me already. Right.
That's good.
That's it. So, right. So,
Can you see it?
yeah, can you see that? That's it. So I've covered everything on that slide already, but basically to say that our service areas, which will be similar for a lot of you, is home visiting and family groups. The thing that is unique to us, or we believe it's quite unique to us, is our counselling service that we offer alongside childcare within our family groups. So we've had a counselling service in our organisation since 2016. We had one of our coordinators who was training to be a counsellor, and we saw that counselling was an opportunity to holistically help some more families. So we decided to bring that into our service. We currently have 1 paid member of staff who's a fully qualified counsellor, and 2 counselling volunteers who help support our staff team, and our families. So we've got all of our 2 volunteer counsellors are trainees, and they have to complete 100 hours of counselling, so they come on board to help us. And we obviously help them by supporting them to do their 100 hours for qualification. And as I said before, it's quite unique in the sense that we offer childcare, which is attached to our family groups. And we also offer online sessions for those who don't need childcare. So let's go into who our volunteers are. So we have 65 home visiting volunteers. That's a huge number of people that support us. We have a number of different volunteering roles. Obviously, home visiting, we have volunteers that support our family groups. We have volunteers that support us on our admin that will come in and help us with some of the processing we need to do. We have our trustees, a board of 8 trustees, all from very different backgrounds, bringing different skills. And we have our ambassadors, which is something we've recently started doing. Basically, if somebody is a home visiting volunteer and they no longer are able to help in that capacity, rather than lose that expertise, we want to harness that, and they can become an ambassador for Home Start, which is lovely. The average age of our volunteers is 48. We think it's quite a young cohort of volunteers. And 30% of our volunteers are from ethnic minority backgrounds and speak over 24 languages, including British Sign Language. And why is that important? Well, that's because it's very reflective of the 3 communities that we support across Watford, Three Rivers and Hertsmere. And 45% of our volunteers come from health and social care backgrounds, obviously bringing a huge wealth of knowledge from that sector, and helping us to support our families and also other volunteers with some of that knowledge. Over to you, Michaela.
Here we go.
Do you want me to do the slide?
Yes, please. Good afternoon all again. So I will be talking a little bit more about the support we provide for our volunteers. Please forgive me if I'm saying something you all guys do. Some of it 100%. We all do. Some of it may be a little bit different. So just bear with me. I will go through everything what we do as Home Start Watford and Three Rivers, and then maybe we can have session later, just sharing what else everybody else doing. So I believe that our kind of looking after ethos, looking after our volunteers and their well-being starts actually during the recruitment process, because we still do our home visits and we do them 2-to-1. So 2 coordinators go and visit a potential volunteer at home and spend that quality time getting to know them, getting the reason behind their volunteering, the reason for them wanting to volunteer, and what they enjoy, what they don't, so on and so forth, and their life experiences, which then obviously later on might come again into their well-being and affect their well-being. We've also embedded the hybrid prep course. We found that really, really useful. I don't know how you guys, but for us it works really well, because all the learning gets done at home, and then during the prep course, the one-to-one, the face-to-face sessions, we have that quality time with our volunteers, again getting to know them and getting to understand them. We have we do it over 5 weeks. So we've got 5 opportunities during the prep course to meet our volunteers. And when we were prepping for this session, I was saying to Karen how interesting it is that every week they turn up in slightly different mood, the same as us. You know, sometimes you wake up and you have a rubbish day and you don't even know why, or you are anxious and you don't even know. And sometimes you are on cloud 9 and you want to share it, you come in. So we really believe here that having that face-to-face contact with our volunteers, that in-person contact, is really important in building those relationships for a future, for us to be able to support them in a future in their volunteering and in a way in a personal life. I will come to that a little bit later on. Then we do regular supervision, of course, as per Home Start agreement. I think where we try really emphasize, and it's our senior coordinator Tracy who's on this call today. She is really hot on wanting to know at the end of support of the 6 months when they're finishing with their family, what is it they really enjoyed? What is it they would really like from the next family? Is there something they want to avoid? Is there something they would really want to get that? It's having that, listening to that voice of theirs and seeing them as individuals rather than cohort of volunteers. And I absolutely love that, what Tracy's her ethos in that. So that takes me nicely to newsletter and regular service updates. Why we introduced that was because our volunteers were saying they are actually not, they read the all singing, dancing newsletters for all the third parties and all the stakeholders. However, they would really like their own newsletter. So we've introduced 8 weekly newsletter, which is literally specific for volunteers, and it's what's happening in just a quick overall, what's happening in the charity, in the organization, what's coming up, dates. We always share some of top tips, so we would have a topic for each 8 weeks of, for example, it could be, I don't know, well, anything they are seeing out in a community. And then also we introduce them to one of our local partners, charity partners or organizations. So that's what they've, again, going back to listening what they are asking. And then we've got regular service updates, which are more or ad hoc. So I don't know if you guys have experienced similar things, but recently we had our family centers. Yes, we are lucky to still have family centers, but they've gone from one provider to another, which hugely affected referrals into our service. So we wanted to quickly update our volunteers on why is it they are not being matched as quickly as they would normally, because we just didn't have the referrals coming in. So it's all these ad hoc important updates which we would do as necessary. Hearing the voice of volunteers. So we do regular surveys and feedback forms after every support, after they finish with a family, which is aware that's the norm, and then regular surveys asking them and their opinions about the support we provide for them, asking about what maybe, for example, training they would like, or anything else the way we could support. Then, and I'm sure everybody does this, but please forgive me and bear with me, it's the appreciation events and that's our thank yous, that's our Christmas parties, that's this week we are hosting our tea party, afternoon tea party for as part of Volunteers Week on Friday. When we were preparing for this, I was sharing a funny story. I always cry when I say thank you to our volunteers. I always cry. I don't know if you guys do, but I find it so emotional because without them, we wouldn't be here, and without them, the family, we wouldn't be changing people's lives like we do, and we literally do that. And it's so emotional. So Karen actually agreed to speak at our volunteers afternoon tea party this year instead of me, so I don't have to cry again. Anyway, moving on, safety net. So these last three bits are maybe just different things that we do, but please forgive me if you do them as well. So safety nets, coffee mornings, and the counselling service for volunteers. We will break those three down a little bit more. So I will just introduce you to them if that's okay. So safety nets are what used to be called, and we still put it in there, support groups. Again, our volunteers, listening to the voice of our volunteers didn't like the name support groups. So they felt that it just was just not what they wanted. So we did a poll and they chose the name safety net. So we have 4 safety nets per year. And these are safe space for volunteers to share any of their challenges, also wins, just any feelings they have whilst volunteering. Because as Karen said, we got 65 of them doing this at any point, any week. However, they don't see each other like this. They don't have the opportunity. And because confidentiality, they are not able to share their experiences with their loved ones. It's the coordinators or here in our safety nets. So they really value them. There is a little quote from one of our volunteers, which I think sums it up as well. So we organize these in varying times and days to get everybody a chance to attend. Again, that was listening to our volunteers, where a lot of our volunteers are still working. And also some of the slightly older generation don't like, or even younger, don't like driving in a dark. So what we've done a rota of the 4 that 2 of the summer ones, which is June and September, are our evening sessions. And then we've got the other 2 would be morning sessions, but we also alternate days. So if somebody's working on Thursday, and if we always have our safety nets on Thursday, that just wouldn't work. We would be excluding them. So Tracy and her team puts it together, rota for the year. We share it at the beginning of the year with our volunteers and put save the day on there so they can pop it in their diaries and then know what it is. These groups also, which is really interesting, and from my point of view, is that they give you opportunity to understand trends out in a community with the families we're seeing in a slightly different way, because the same as you guys, when you work with volunteers, individuals as coordinators, they are sharing some things, but maybe what happens then in a cohort, in a group session, those sharings then maybe they just haven't shared that last bit, or they haven't clicked, oh, I'm experiencing this, or I'm seeing this in a community. Yeah. So that it's a magic thing, really. It happens that all of a sudden we think, oh, we didn't even notice this trend, or we were not aware because they haven't shared it as such. Oh, I did talk about crying already, but on one of the points is tissue required, because volunteers find it quite emotional too. It's quite a good kind of cathartic moment. It is, and we attend regularly, don't we? Because it's so special. So that's our safety nets in old money support groups. Then we've got our coffee mornings, and again, please forgive me if you do that. But our volunteers have asked about seeing each other on a more social level as well. So safety nets are all about what they do as volunteers, what they do with their families. Coffee mornings are about them as individuals, them as people. That is their opportunity to connect with their peers and focus on them as and not on families they support. Karen and I always try to attend those as well, because there are the little bits of information, the nuggets, which then make it all personable, and we are able to treat our volunteers as individual, to the point where next time we see a volunteer, we go, oh, how is your new grandchild, or how did your operation go, or how are anything and everything. So these sessions or these coffee mornings are all about them and not the families they support. We use them. They are really well attended by our resting volunteers as well. So sometimes resting volunteers don't feel they belong or fit into the safety nets. So they feel more kind of at ease attending our coffee mornings. So it's a great quick win. If you've got a small room, we are very lucky in the building where we do have rooms we can use. But you could maybe contact local church or have another area where you could. So this is quite a quick win, which we found has gone down really well with volunteers. And because it was something they asked for and we did, it's fantastic, isn't it? It's and it is I think I've said that already, opportunity for coordinators and the wider home staff, whoever's available from the staff, they will pop in, say hello, because our volunteers also like to know who the emails they receive come from on daily basis or not.
And they're a nice biscuit.
A nice biscuit, absolutely.
Nice biscuit.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. That's what.
Okay, and supporting volunteers. So this is our counselling, and again, I know not many home starts can do this, but Karen will tell you a little bit later on, maybe some ideas how to. So this happened. This idea came around when we had a prep course, maybe about 18 months ago, and one of the new volunteers on a prep course said to us, well, when we were talking about counselling for families, and she said, well, do you provide this for volunteers? And we were like, no, we don't. And then we thought, well, why aren't we? And why don't we do it? And it makes sense. Why don't we? So Karen and I naively thought that it would be quite easy. It wasn't, because we don't come from the counselling background. So we had to really learn about the ethics of counselling and ethics of cross-contamination of information and just things we didn't really come across before and knew anything about. So we learned very quickly that this is going to be a journey, but we were determined to make it happen. Can I just click and please don't get this, you don't need to read it. This is just a really
scary slide.
This is a scary slide of the processes we had to put in to make sure that our offer of counselling, low-cost counselling for our volunteers is sustainable and it's ethical. So it's the pathway you can see on the left-hand side. It's the pathway for a family getting the support from our counselling team. And on the right-hand side is the pathway for volunteer. And there are all different things, because it is all about preventing that cross-contamination. Because if you think that a counsellor is working with a family, for example, and then they would be matched with, or they would be providing support to a volunteer who works with the same family, it's just not possible. So there was a lot of logistical kind of dilemmas we needed to overcome, and that was a fantastic learning for us as well, wasn't it, as directors, about the service. Sorry, I clicked back again. So we have done it, and we are offering this service through our volunteer counsellors and our paid counsellors. And ever since we've done this, from about 10 months ago or something, we started implementing this and offering this offer to our volunteers. We had 6 or 7 volunteers who've benefited from this, and they've been it's been received really well. And it's something which, I don't know if in your part of the country, what it's like through NHS, but where we live, it's not that easy to get counselling. And you only get 8 weeks of counselling, so we offer up to 14 weeks, and it's just slightly different. So we are really, really proud of that. I know this is quite big because not all home staff can do it. So Karen will tell you just about maybe some ideas what we could share with you.
So some learnings from the start of doing of supporting the volunteers through counselling. So we did have to understand about ethical insight, about ensuring there was privacy across any traumas that may have been shared during the counselling sessions. We did have to impress upon the volunteers that this was not going to go across the service. So it was going to be safe and confidential support in a safe space. How do we make it happen? Well, obviously, we were concerned about how much more money will this cost us? How will we get it funded? We did manage to get a small piece of seed funding to pilot this counselling. But what we actually found the most beneficial was talking to people in the local community and building partnerships. So building a partnership with the local college. We realised that and if you do a counselling placement, you need to do 100 hours in a practice as part of your qualification. So we knew that that was an opportunity for us to build a sustainable model, a low-cost sustainable model, whilst also leveraging that partnership with the local college. We got some guidance from BACP, which is the governing body for counselling. And we managed to, as I said, to get a small amount of seed money, but it was basically doing what we were already offering, but just offering it to the volunteers in our cohorts. So that local college and partnership was absolutely pivotal in getting this pilot to run as a success and for it to be a future sustainable model as well. Let me just go on to next. Oh, so yeah, I think that's what I was going to say. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, so I think the thing with this example, which will be really hard for some of the other home starts to understand, is, well, that's great. You've got a counselling service already, so that was really easy for you to offer, counselling free of charge to your volunteers. But I think what I'd like to express to people across our network is it all starts with hearing the voice of the volunteer. I mean, you could have a volunteer, or you could have volunteers that say, you know what, I've been out of work for a while. I'd like to get back into the world of work. I'd like some more training. I'd like some more learning. I'd like some more opportunities. Link up with your local college. There's going to be free or fully funded courses or very low cost courses that could get volunteers back into employability or back into the world of work if that's what they want to do, or even just enrich their lives through learning and development. Link up with your local council. They'll often have things available as well that you can kind of partner onto. And all of these things will be low cost but high impact, because actually listening to the voice of your volunteers, whether or not those volunteers take up that counselling, it really increases the morale across the whole of the volunteering base. So that's what I would suggest people do. Listen to the voice of the volunteers and see what free resources are out there by building a relationship with somebody who's already offering something, to see if you can leverage that relationship to give your volunteers something extra, something for free, but something that they've asked for. Yeah. And then just really around the impact of counselling for volunteers. So at the same time as volunteers asking for this, there was a study that completed a couple of years ago by the VCSFE about the volunteers burnout, about how many volunteers were coming out of volunteering because of the complexities they were seeing in communities and how they were not able to just keep going all the time. So what could we do to help them? We knew that they'd asked for this, but we also knew that this was going to be something that would really help them. So heal the healers. So when the volunteer is, really at the end of their energy levels, maybe they've got life trauma of their own going on at the same time, but they're seeing, all the issues around cost of living crisis, post-pandemic, plus that's being, emphasized again by the people that they're supporting in the community, with children that might have developmental delay or some neurodivergence. Let's give them a safe space where they can come and have their mental health looked after, improve their mental health. This in turn improves their resilience. It helps us to retain volunteers. As I said, it increases the morale across the volunteers team. And ultimately that gives stronger support for families. We build this community of support around volunteers. The volunteers build a community of support around the families. We're all holistically working together for the same result. And that's why it's been such an important and pivotal piece for us to give this counselling for volunteers. And we'll just keep listening and see what else they come up with next, won't we? So I think that's everything from our side. Any questions? Or thank you for listening to us, and thanks for going through the technological difficulties. Yeah, let's stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Michaela and Karen. That is a really, really interesting insight, and one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you along, because I knew you just had so much to offer. But while examples like yours are just so inspiring, we all have a different journey. with regards to supporting our volunteers. You know, it's a different experience, I think, for everybody, and we encounter lots of different barriers to providing that support, and those barriers will be different for each individual person, for each individual home start or volunteer manager who's working on that. So just while you ladies take a well-earned rest and a pause and refresh your voices, I'm just going to encourage a few people in the audience to come to us. Yvonne, I know you have a Slido ready to share. So we just want to...
I do, Claire.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think your audio's a little bit...
Am I fuzzy?
A little bit distant. Have you got your...
Am I better?
That's better. There we go.
There you are.
Thank you.
Not at all. So I was saying that while examples like the example we've heard from Home Start Watford and Three Rivers are very inspiring, everybody is on a different journey. And that journey is a very unique journey to all of us. We've got different barriers, different obstacles to overcoming, whatever they might be, to being able to put in place that support that we'd like to achieve. So just as a first question to the audience, while Michaela and Karen just catch a breath, I would like to pose the question: how is a volunteer that's well supported going to feel about what they do? Let's start with the volunteer and that very person-centered thought process, how they're going to feel, because I think that we've heard some really inspiring stuff so far, but what does that mean for the person-centered approach? And I don't know, are we able to see any answers to that, Yvonne?
Yeah, sorry, I was just popping the
No, don't worry, thank you.
joinable link as well. So I might have to stop sharing and reshare. Move it to a different, oh, we've got some lovely answers coming through. Hang on. Let me pop these on screen.
Oh, I can see a few. We've got encouraged, valued, motivated, accomplished. Oh, I like accomplished. That's a really strong one. Proud, warm inside. Yep, 100%. This volunteer is going to be very connected to our cause and our mission. And you're thinking about those personal motivations for volunteering. That's definitely going to start having an impact. So just going to let a few more words come through and encourage people. And I would say that if you don't want to pop your words into the word cloud, into the Slido for this, you're very welcome to have them as sort of personal reflections or self-reflections. But it's interesting just to consider that we're all working in a different environment with different circumstances. So we've got different restrictions in place, different things that are perhaps preventing us from achieving that gold standard that we would like to achieve. But if one were to just lift that lid for a moment and throw it away, what would be the thing that you would do to improve volunteer well-being in your organisation, in your Home Start, if you had no restrictions? If you could do something tomorrow, and anything, then what would be the thing that would, what would be the first action? Where would you start?
It's that miracle question, isn't it?
It is. It's the gold standard. It's what would you like to do?
Absolutely.
More time. Yes. More time. 100%. Community. Yep. Have the money for a dedicated volunteer coordinator? Yes, obviously our Home Start network is just, you know, various different sizes and shapes, but that would be, yes, I would imagine something that a lot of people share. Prue, I love what you've popped in the chat. You want them to feel integral to everything you do. Really, like everything that they're doing is key. It links. Regular treats, transport. Yeah, a lot of venues, a lot of locations really struggle for volunteer transport. Experience. I love that word, experience. There's so much in that, though. I don't know who popped that in, but maybe you can pop in a little bit more. That's really interesting to kind of unfold. Yoga, and that's interesting. It's sort of like the idea of that kind of well-being element and sort of encouraging volunteers to take care of themselves, self-identify their needs. That's really important. And it's really interesting reflection as these answers are coming up that arguably our volunteers are all of different personality type, all of different disposition, and what works for one person or one group of people may not work for the other. So while one person might really enjoy the coffees and the drop-ins, that might not be what the other person needs. So how much of that is then having a multifaceted approach where you're doing lots of different things? And again, I think that goes back to the more time thing and having the coordinator, doesn't it? But yeah, so if we had the capacity to do anything, I guess it's the win the lottery question, isn't it? What would you do if you won the lottery? What would you do if you had no barriers and restrictions and you could do anything with volunteer support? Thank you so much, everybody, for participating in that. I think it's just nice to pause in between sort of listening and question sessions, just to let the brain have a little bit of a self-reflection and a think about that. I hope you feel that was worthwhile to do. I certainly feel like we heard some wonderful things from Michaela and Karen. One of the small things that perhaps we can do and we can take from that, something that I noted down, was just around the safety nets and organising them at different times of day and on different days. It's a small gesture, it's a small thing in the planning, but probably makes a really huge difference to the volunteers for whom you're sort of putting that provision in place. So, you know, it doesn't need to be big grand gestures. It can sometimes be small things that make that support a little bit easier. And I think maybe that's a really good take-home message. But we've got some time for some Q&A, and I think, Yvonne, did I see some questions were coming up in the chat?
Yes, there's just one question around the counselling that that you guys support. Is that, so somebody's just asking, is that free for volunteers to access?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think on a couple of the slides it said low cost, and then I think we couple of times said free. So just to clarify that, it's low cost. So the same as our families, money and value would never ever stop us delivering or enabling volunteers to access the support. So some of our volunteers who, it's on a sliding scale of donation. If a volunteer can afford £1, we will be grateful for £1. If they can afford 5, that's great too. Some of our volunteers are in a position where they can offer a little more. We will of course accept it, because in a roundabout it always goes back to our families anyway and being able to. So the answer is no, not completely. Is it very low cost? Yes, it could be very minimal.
And if they couldn't afford it, it would be free.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The same as our families, we would never stop that. Did that answer?
Thank you. And I'm just going to give it a little moment for some hands up to appear or questions to come through in the chat. I'm conscious that people are probably putting their questions and kind of formulating those together as we speak. One question from me, though, I wonder, Michaela and Karen, if you can maybe, I think you mentioned something about how many months this had been in place. Roughly in terms of timescales, how long did it take to establish?
So roughly took us about 6 months to establish, but it was a working process from that point. And as always with all of our service areas, we'll just continue to, refine it and make sure that it's doing what it needs to do. So yeah, 6 months to establish it, and then to kind of really embed it probably we've done it over the last 10, 12 months, haven't we? And there's another question in the chat here as well, Claire.
Yes,
can we
there
just
is.
pick up on that? Is that okay?
Of course, of course. So Michelle from Homestart Trafford, Salford, asks, you work over many areas. Do your coffee mornings in different areas to capture volunteers across all of those areas, or have you a centred building from which to hold them?
That's exactly what it is. We've got a centered building. So where we sit, where our offices are, is very much in the middle of our patch. So it's accessible for all our 3 areas for volunteers. So no, we hold them always in our offices. We don't travel. The coffee mornings as such don't travel with volunteers. But I guess our areas are quite
Close
compact.
together. I suppose
So
if you
are more rural,
you might want to consider virtual or doing
Or
it.
virtual,
Yeah, because it's still just the opportunity to talk, isn't it? Even though, so we're probably lucky that our 3 areas are very close to each other.
Is that okay, Michelle?
Just giving a few minutes for any other questions to filter through. We have a question from Prue. Prue, I hope you don't mind. I'll just for time, I'll read out your question if that's all right. Have you carried out more formal impact assessment?
So that's an easy answer. Not yet, Prue. We have not done that yet. We don't feel we are in the stage. I would say within the next 6 months to 10 months, that's where we will be looking at that together with our counselling service. So our review of our service as such is my priority, is one of my objectives for the upcoming year. So that is going to be part of that. Thank you. What a valuable question. What a really good question. Yeah.
And I think we obviously do have proper impact assessments around our actual counselling service. So a lot of the learnings that we've got around how we review that impact will be similarly used in the counselling for the volunteers.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's any other questions that come through, we can collate those for our audience and share them with you after the event. I would like to just thank you so much, both of you, for your contribution today. I know what time and effort you put into it, so thank you so much for coming to share with us all that you do to support volunteer wellbeing. I really enjoyed it myself, and I hope that others did. So for now, I am going to move us on. Just some of you may have already seen from Fiona, who many of you know, our volunteering development manager. She launched a resource to the network on Friday on At Home. So I think Yvonne will probably be loading that up now, but you would have seen in Fiona's post that as a wider part of our programme of work around communities of volunteering and that model, we produced a volunteer wellbeing check-in. So it's a short guided meditation for your volunteers to take a moment and check in with you and have space to reflect. So in Fiona's post, there's a number of suggestions for how this meditative session can be used. You might want to use it at supervision or in a group situation, maybe, for example, a coffee morning or something similar. And we thought that it would be a really good resource to showcase in this session because it really supports that idea of sort of supporting volunteer wellbeing. So we'd like to invite you to take part in it for a moment and to have a go at doing it for yourself. It's a nice way to reset, I think, before moving into our afternoon of work. So if you wish to camera off, you're very welcome to, but we have this session to load up and I believe that will be ready to go. I'd like to invite you to join us for that before we finish up and say our goodbyes at the end.
Hi there. This moment is just for you. You've been given your time, your care, your heart, supporting families through challenges. That takes strength, compassion, and so much energy. Now let's take a moment to pause and focus on you. If you can, find a quiet space. Feel free to sit back or lie down. Close your eyes or let your gaze soften. And let's breathe together. Take a deep breath in through your nose and hold for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale slowly through your mouth. Let it go. Again, breathe in deeply and hold. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Exhale, releasing the weight of the day. One last time. Inhale and hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale. Let your body soften. Feel the ground beneath you. Let it support you fully. Notice the weight of your body and allow it to settle. Drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, relax your hands, soften your body. Now let yourself be here, just as you are. No expectations, no pressure. It's easy to carry others' emotions, their fear, their sadness, their uncertainty. But today, in this moment, you are allowed to put some of that down. You don't need to hold everything. You don't need to do it all. This moment is to receive stillness, kindness, and breath. You are not alone in this work. You are part of a community, a network of care, of hope, of healing. You are making a difference, not just in what you do, but in who you are. You are doing enough, and you are enough. Now let's finish with one last deep breath together. Inhale slowly and hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale. Let everything go. Now slowly bring your awareness back to yourself. Wiggle your fingers, your toes, and gently roll your shoulders. And when you are ready, open your eyes. Take your time, and I hope you carry this calm with you, even as the day continues.
Hello again. Nice to see you. I hope that you enjoyed that. I certainly feel like those moments do give us an opportunity to recenter and just to bring ourselves back to a place of peace before we move forward. So I hope that you did enjoy that. I am just popping in the meeting chat now the link to the at-home post where Fiona did share that resource on Friday. She has asked for some feedback, so if you liked it, if you enjoyed it, please do be sure to pop that in there for her. It's really good to know also how you're planning to use that resource, and if you do use it with your volunteers, how they respond to it and how they like it. So we'd be really interested to have that feedback. On the subject of feedback, we'd also be very grateful for your time today. If you would be happy to feedback to us on this session, and we have got a forms link in the chat, and I believe there's a QR code floating around somewhere that's going to be shared with you shortly. So this should leave you enough time to give us a little feedback on the session. Thank you so much for your time and for coming along, and we hope that you have a good rest of your afternoon.